Hi, it's Jeremy Shatton from An Earful. Last Sunday was my birthday, and I was given the gift of a trip to Greenpoint to do some crate digging. So first, my daughter and I headed out to Record Grouch, one of our favorite spots. The first place I always look at Record Grouch is in the new arrivals section because it's genre non-specific. When you don't have an idea of what you're looking for, it's really fun to just be stimulated by a bunch of different albums from different years, different genres, different types of labels and countries, and everything is in there. And I quickly found a treasure. This is Southern Comfort by Frank Wess. Frank Wess may be the greatest jazz flute player of all time. And in fact, Oliver Nelson, who arranged the date, says here that he's one of the few to transmute the flute to a convincing jazz voice. And he also notes that the composition Summer Frost, which is by Frank Wess, uses a Debussy tone bag. Love these liner notes. It's actually in beautiful condition. It's a great record. And I would say the title track presages soul jazz, which was an interesting look. 1962. Then I went into the next bin and I found this. Player's Anthem by Junior Mafia. This is one of my favorite hip-hop songs of all time. And the idea of having 6 different versions. You got the dirty version, the radio version, the instrumental on the A side, then the dirty remix on the B side, and the radio remix and the remix instrumental. So you can really get a full experience of Notorious B.I.G., Little Kim, and that unbelievable groove produced by DJ Clark Kent. Definitely worth the $6. Then I went over to the folk section because I tend to like British folk, and there's a lot of obscurities in there, things that you may never have heard of. And I found a record that is on Island and is so obscure that Chris Blackwell didn't even mention it in his book, The Islander, and he mentions a lot of obscure things. This is Claire Hamill, October. And I took a look at the cover and I thought, oh, this could be interesting. And then I flipped it over and I got even more interested because it's produced by Paul Samwell Smith, ex-Yardbirds. I'm very interested in the careers of the Yardbirds as they headed into the 70s. We all know what Jimmy Page did, and Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton, but the other guys is not so familiar. So Renaissance with Keith Relf and Jim McCarty, and Paul Samwell Smith, who produced Renaissance, became quite the producer. In fact, working with Paul Simon on There Goes Rhymin' Simon, which had some big hits on it. So I was really interested in this. It's got Wayne Perkins on guitar, Alan White on drums, and it's a really interesting record. Some of it is very delicate, very ethereal, and then other times it's kind of rocked up. So, and she lets loose some shrieks and whoops and hollers. Very interesting vocalist. I believe she's still around, but this record is not anywhere to be found. And then in the new folk, I found this, something called Starbirthed, Cosmic Call. This is their debut album. It's printed on limited edition deep space violet colored vinyl. It's quite beautiful. And it's also got a hand silkscreened back cover, which is numbered number 59 out of 200. Really nice, spacey, electronic. Starbirthed is the perfect name. If that doesn't give you a flavor for it, then the only other thing will be to listen to it. So that was Record Grouch. It was a big success. We went next door and had some coffee, and then we headed over to the Academy Annex on Oak Street. The Academy Annex is quite a bit larger than Record Grouch, and we knew that with the day winding down, we would not have time to even scratch the surface. But we did scratch the surface, I would say. We looked through all the new arrivals, and that was really interesting. There was a lot of records from China, Japan, very unfamiliar stuff, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. I couldn't tell if it was kitsch or if it was folk music, or I really had no idea, but there was a really interesting selection in there, a lot of jazz. And then I came across this, The Replacements, unsuitable for airplay. This was a record store release earlier this year, record store day release earlier this year, and I didn't make the effort to get it, but people kept saying it was great. There's only 17,000 of them out there, and I put it on the station to give it a listen, and it sounded phenomenal. So I'm really glad to have this in my collection. As far as I know, it's not available digitally, and I'm a huge Replacements fan. The 1981 concert seems like a great thing to have in your collection. And then after we went through all the new arrivals, I went over to the reggae section because I'm always looking for a few hard to find reggae items. And I came across this, Dennis Brown, Wolf and Leopards. This was a record that a friend lent to me in high school. And it really opened my ears and my mind to further possibilities in reggae beyond the more common things like Bob Marley. And I had a cassette of this and just played it all the time, even up until through the 90s. And then I got a CD that had most of the album on it in a compilation, but I always wanted to have the original album. And this is that. It was only $10 because the cover is in horrendous condition. It's held together with dried up tape at the bottom, but the record sounded fantastic. And it had the bass response that I can't get from the CD or the cassette. This was the bass response that I remembered. It's one of the most beautiful reggae records ever made. And in fact, Bob Marley used to say that Dennis Brown was his favorite singer. So that was my birthday vinyl haul, and I'm quite satisfied with all these new sounds and old that I get to bring to my ears. Thanks so much for watching.